dangerous on several accounts. First, as the military junta that governs this country becomes more and more isolated, more and more rejected by the population, they become more repressive. They become more vicious. And we saw that viciousness in this election. Indeed, you saw candidates now appearing in helmets and flak jackets. As I said some time back, maybe if we get another election while the junta is still here, those who participate in it will need armored vehicles to move around. So it was a very dangerous election for those who participated. I think the one which was close to this kind of violence was the election of 2001. But it was also dangerous because indeed it was held in a situation of a pandemic. And a pandemic too that is real. It's an election that should never have been held. And there were constitutional avenues to avoid holding an election in a pandemic. But those constitutional avenues were clearly ignored. The election itself was not the main problem for the pandemic. The campaigns of the presidential and parliamentary, the damage had already been totally done by two events. One was, of course, the earlier mismanagement of the trucks when everybody was locked down, having left the trucks to go all over the town, all over the country, depositing the COVID in every center. But second and most deadly were the NRM primaries, which now picked it from all those centers and took it all over the country. So by the time of the presidential campaigns and parliamentary campaigns, the damage was already done. There was nothing to save. So I welcome back all those who participated and survived the guns and the COVID. I think the election 2021 indeed confirmed to those who may not have been convinced that what we have in Uganda is nothing but a military junta. That, you know, this whole thing of NRM is a party and there is a contestation of parties is a very, very flimsy cover. What we have is simply a military junta that organizes elections to smear some legitimacy on themselves. That is what we have. And that is a huge, huge problem, which sometimes people don't appreciate. Some of our countrymen, especially, you know, young people that had not seen what we have been going through, thought that maybe it was easy to push aside. But I think this election has confirmed to everybody that this is a huge problem that we are grappling with for now 30 years. It's a huge problem. And we should not treat it casually, you know. Now, a military junta that takes the rights of citizens away, holds the country hostage, endangers everybody equally. Whatever formation you are in, you have no right. You can be killed anytime. You can be locked up anytime. Your property can be taken away anytime. Like you see people being thrown off their land and so on. You have no rights in the country. Those who live in military juntas are not citizens. They have no citizen rights. And so, our struggle is not a contestation for office. This is again to underscore that point. That the struggle in Uganda is not to contest for the office of president or to contest for the office of Lord Mayor. No, that's not the struggle. The struggle before the people of Uganda is to become citizens again, to have rights, equal rights as citizens, to have equal opportunities as citizens. The power we talk about, which we are contesting, that we want our power as citizens, citizens must become sovereign, must become the owners of the country. We are not owners of Uganda. Owners have power over their wealth, first and foremost. You have power over your wealth. We don't. Citizens have power to determine how they are governed and who governs them. We don't. We don't have that power. Citizens have power to determine who is right and who is wrong. That is a citizen power, to determine justice, who is right, who is wrong. How and what each one should share. Those basic powers are the powers we are fighting for, all of us. And I always say that this struggle, therefore, is not limited to the political groupings that you know, FDC, DP, I don't know, NUP. No, this struggle is for every single citizen, including you members of the media. This is not a partisan struggle. And I am glad that members of the media have been responding to that with valor. You have as many wounds as Omulode has, I'm sure. Some media people are in wheelchairs. And yes, that is what it is, because giving information, you are seen as an enemy. So this is a huge struggle for all of us. Now, because we are captive and because all our property is owned by those with guns, the 2021 election excelled in demonstrating their tools of maintaining power. Every gun was out. You know? How can you have an election where you have, you know, tanks and armored vehicles all over the place? There is that video where you see what was being paraded in Kampala for an election. You know? If they were that strong, they should have We should never have had a war for 20 years. You know? The money that was used in this election, the whole government has been shut down for a year. And all money taken to the election. And this was done formally. The Secretary of the Treasury issued an order that only 4 areas will be getting money. State House, Defense, Electoral Commission, and salaries, with the wage bill, the statutory payments. Those are the only things that have been spent on. Local governments are bankrupt. All local governments are bankrupt. Education has been closed for a year and is still closed of our country. You can't imagine the loss a country suffers if you close education for a whole year. We still don't know what will happen, even in education up to now. All that money has been channeled in trying to keep Mr. Museveni in office. The supplementary budgets that were being piled in the State House for classified expenditure, 1 trillion was sent to State House for classified expenditure. 1 trillion during the pandemic. What secret work is in the home of a president in a situation like this? Close to 4 trillion was taken to defense as classified expenditure. In a pandemic year, in an election year, was Uganda at war. The war was to bring back Mr. Museveni to office. So in this election, all the tools of controlling power were rolled out. Force, money, control of media. And that's why you have all those wounds. Control of media, so that only the voice of the gunmen can be heard. And the media is going to be further constrained because of that. The more the junta becomes isolated, the more your freedom as pressmen will go. Control of the EC, control of the Electoral Commission, even the pretenses were off in this election about controlling the Electoral Commission. You know, the election started by Mr. Museveni dismissing the senior managers of the Electoral Commission during the election. And they call it Independent Electoral Commission. During the election, the secretary to the Electoral Commission and all the other were dismissed summarily overnight. So where was the commission? That is the election that we are going through. The gerrymandering of constituencies has reached a peak. Gerrymandering, so that they disadvantage anybody who is challenging them. You know? And this, regrettably, you find people still just quiet about it. We have now a situation where you have a district like Wakiso. Wakiso has how many people? About 1.5 million in Wakiso. They have one woman MP. 1.5 million people. You find a place like Bulisa district, which was 2 sub-counties. I think the total voters there are about 8,000. Their MP has the same vote as the MP of Wakiso. Why? because they know that they have no votes in Wakiso. So they will be represented by one person. Same as all these districts that you see in Buganda. You know? So, gerrymandering was a major problem. And all these have been there in all elections. That's why all the 6 general elections Uganda have had have never been free or fair, have never led to a peaceful change of government. So, this is why I, as a person who has contested 4 times under this junta, came to the conclusion, it was not a casually made conclusion, that an election in and of itself will not remove gunmen. That we as citizens need to do a bit more than going to elections. As you know, we have never called for boycotting the elections because, very unfair as they are, they open a window that is important for us to use. To go through that window and pass a message to our people. On ordinary times, you will not be allowed to step outside. So when they are looking for their legitimacy, we use it to organize and to inform our people. So how do we get over armed rule in Uganda, which is now a very clearly established phenomenon that we are dealing with? We simply have to struggle. And it's a tough struggle. It's not a small struggle. It's a tough struggle. And this struggle, like all struggles, must go on many fronts. It's not just one front that will crack the problem. We have to struggle through many fronts. But in those fronts that we struggle through, some principles are critical. One of the principles is that there are 2 sides to the struggle. Not 3, not 4, not 5. 2 sides. The oppressor is on one side. The oppressed are on the second side. There are no 3 sides. You must choose which side you are on. The second principle, which we are still failing in, regrettably, is that those on the oppressed side must work hand by hand, shoulder to shoulder. And because those who are oppressed are very many, the ones who oppress us work with everything they have to make sure that we are never together. So in the concluded election, even as we go to those fronts, we must go to these fronts purposefully. It was not necessary that Omulodi, who has been at the forefront of the struggle, should be facing opponents of the same side. It's not necessary. Umulod should even never have been campaigning in Kampala, should have been going to fight for other people elsewhere, knowing his base is safe, you know. So how we organize is extremely important. And this is why we were very happy when one of the veteran politicians we have in this country, the Honorable Mzee Paulo Semogere, started an initiative of bringing all of us together as unity in our diversity of the oppressed. That is the direction to go. We cannot afford to be rivals, rivaling in prison. We have talked before about contesting to be the Katikiro in prison. Doesn't help. We must consciously coordinate, think together, and act together to rid ourselves of this problem. Though a military junta appears vicious and invisible, they are actually very weak. You know? They are paper tigers. They are not the first ones. This regime like this is not the first one to dominate Uganda. We were dominated by the most powerful empire possibly to exist on our globe. The British Empire dominated us here. Those were the makers of guns. These ones just give them second-hand guns, which they run around with. There is nothing new that they use, you know. All these mambas are the ones the South Africans were using in the, you know, long time ago. Nothing comes to Uganda new, you know. Except that there are no licenses. They would be in Owino, like with the rest of the old clothes and old, you know. So these are not as powerful as the British. But we defeated the British. People here defeated the British. Our ancestors defeated the British and they left. So how can we fail to defeat these pretenders? How? But we won't get rid of them simply by going by their rules. We cannot use their rules to remove them. No. We will not use that they have organized an election. They are the ones who will announce. And you've seen how they announce. They announce what they want. They announce what they want and say, you go to our court now. You know? So, it is doable. A very difficult thing to do, provided we take it seriously, what we need to do. The commonality of purpose, that we are together. If people unite and decide what to do, it wouldn't take 2 weeks here with the regime still here. Just 2 weeks. It wouldn't. what is going on is not sufficient reason to get rid of this regime quickly, then nothing maybe will ever be. I have not seen in the last elections, even when we went to the bush, I was in the election of 1980. I campaigned in the election of 1980. There was nothing anywhere near what we are seeing now in terms of violations. It was not there. That people can't sleep in their homes. Thousands, some of you and the media is not highlighting it enough. Thousands of our young men are dying in dungeons in this city. Thousands. I have seen those who have escaped from, not escaped, been released from some of those dungeons. And the stories are horrific of what is going on with our young people who are being kidnapped from homes all over the country. It's not just here in Kampala. They are kidnapping people in Iganga, kidnapping people in Masaka, kidnapping people all over the place. And they are full in the dungeons here under terrible torture and death. They are depositing dead bodies in mortuaries. And when they are unclaimed, they go and bury them as people without anybody who knows them. And you know, now they have terrorized the country. Everybody seems to be quiet. As you may, if you are passing in town, you may think there is nothing wrong going on. We cannot leave this situation to continue like this. You know? Soldiers all over the place, up to now, everywhere. Guns, guns, guns. We can stop this. It's possible. We have the power to do so. But you see, when they make you lose confidence, then they can get away with any kind of murder. This will not be solved by Besigye, by Kyagulanyi, by Mulodi, by our President Power. It will not be solved by us, the individual leaders. This is a matter that must be solved by Ugandans, all of us working together. And this is why I have always, felt very sad when I hear people saying, you said that we are going to work and the junta will go, but it didn't go. So if it didn't go, is it my fault? Now, is it only me who is suffering? No. If my plan was wrong, bring a better one, I will join you. But we must find a plan that saves us. That's the whole idea. So for us, the purpose of leadership is to guide what can help. But the solution must come from everybody. All our people must be activists for their own freedom. And everybody must make the choice personally. I and my colleagues, we made personal choices to fight for our freedom. Whatever we meet, whatever we encounter, we are ready to take it for our freedom. Nobody pays us. Sometimes you hear young people saying, but I need food at home. Yes, you need food at home, but who will give you the food? You must fight even when you are hungry, because that's how you will get food sustainably once you have control over your wealth. When we went to the bush, some of us were very young. In my case, I was earning a very good salary in a first-class hospital. I chose to go and stay hungry and walk on foot hundreds of miles. Live under rain, what? You'll never get freedom cheaply. You'll never get freedom without pain. If people think that somehow freedom will come, they'll just call us and say, now we have had enough. Here it is. We are going to perish and become extinct. So, what do? Must stop. We simply cannot sit any longer as a people. It's unconscionable to sit as our young people are removed from homes and kept under that terrible torture they are going through. And everybody is keeping quiet. And the superintendent of that operation is some general called Kandiho. Kanchiriho. This is a notice to them. They simply must stop. Cannot go on. This is our country. And we are not saying that somebody may not break law, but if you break law, you are treated according to the law. You are taken to court, you are charged, you defend yourself. And if you are found guilty, you are punished according to the law. Not just killing people. Somebody saying, stray bullets killed 50 people, or whatever, 20 people, that one, is a small problem. It's not. So that simply must stop. And all of us should be united in saying it must stop, every Ugandan. Because if you think it's far away from you, tomorrow it is coming to you. And to stop it means we must all act. We should do everything to make sure that we never get an election of this kind again, ever again. Mr. Museveni was not even supposed to be part of this election. The constitution stopped him already. He violated it. Took soldiers in parliament, beat up people to become a candidate. Took us to a pandemic to become a candidate, to stay in office. These violations, gross violations of human rights, of democratic principles that are enshrined in our constitution, that are enshrined in regional treaties that we have, that are enshrined in international covenants, must be tackled by everyone. So apart from us Ugandans doing something, those regional partners, international partners in those covenants must be called. They have a duty to stop this also. It should not just be ourselves. Everybody has a duty. Uganda is signatory to the East African, to the constitutive act of the East African community. So the presidents of the East African community should, and their people should not sit as all this terror is going on in Uganda, simply to keep one man in office. How can we, why are we in the East African community then? Does it have any sense? Why are we in the African Union? And the African Union Charter, that people's and human and people's rights of the African Union, what are they doing about them? Today, I think, was it today, I saw that the European Union ambassadors are going to visit Kyagulanyi. This is not just time for visiting and then what? There must be clear actions if they want to take action, they visit, you know? It's not a time for you know, public relations. And the European Union has been quite interested in a positive way in Uganda's democratization. They have always put in a lot of effort in observing elections and writing the terrible things that happen and what can be done to correct them. So it's really time for action. It's time for action for everybody. It's time for action. We talk to you. We are also talking to the international community. We want to simply make a clarion call to all Ugandans. No, but before I go to the Ugandans, to the international players, I have told you all the money that was spent, that is still being spent hunting our people down. All the money they are using to hunt our people down was borrowed. It's not Ugandan money. In the last, from March up to now, they have borrowed about $1.7 billion, which was borrowed. 600 million euro from Stanbic Bank, 500 from IMF, 500 million, 300 from World Bank, and others from small entities. It is that money that is torturing us. And yet we are the ones to pay it. Now, it's time that we also send a very clear message to the lenders of this junta. That giving loans like they are doing is the perfect description of odious debt. And in history, there is clear precedence that citizens have a right not to pay odious debts, where the lender lends knowing what the borrower is doing, that it's not doing it in the interest of their people. The lender must take responsibility. Even as we talk, they are all over the place borrowing more on our behalf to use it again to kill our people. So this is to send that very clear message to the lenders of Uganda. They shall lend us when the people of Uganda have a say in what happens. Now to ourselves, as I have said, the starting point for our freedom must be reclaiming our confidence as citizens. That appears to me to be the major problem. Twenyoma, we now feel unable to do anything. We have been rendered so self-despising that we think we can't do anything. But worse still, those who try to do something, they are also weakened by others. They say, but you know, even then, nechokola nacho techiriyo. Taina chakola, but nechokola, you know? So that, we must solve that. We must solve that. Kyenkola bwe kibanga tekiriyo gwokola yekirala ndabe nti gye kikola ki nti kyekiri nange ekyange bwe kiba tekirina gye kiraga nkwate ekikyo tugende, because it is the same struggle, it is the same pain. Genze mu kooti emirundi egiwera era nagamba sijja kugenda lwa nsonga ez'ebimu bye nalaba. I don't go to court. I didn't go to court in 2011. In 2011, I didn't go to court. It's just like the elections. We go to the elections knowing they will not announce me. And that's why now I announce myself. Because nobody will announce. Against Mbabazi when he went. But they ordered some things to be done. And those are important things they ordered also, if they could be done. So if you have any evidence, let's give it to them. And they go.